Welcome back for another fun colorwork pattern. Today I'm going to be using High Desert from We Crochet. This is a 100% USA Shaniko Wool and it's 298 yards per 100 grams. I'll be using the Stargazing and Quail colors. This is a really nice sport weight yarn to work with and I've really enjoyed it. The fibers are perfect for colorwork. It couldn't be better. I'm also using a Furls H crochet hook. You'll need a stitch marker and some scissors. Let's get started. Now for this pattern, I labeled this blue as color A and this gray as color B throughout the written pattern. So when I say A and B, that's what they're labeled as. We're going to start with color A, which I'm using this blue, and we're going to place a slip knot onto our crochet hook, and then we're going to start by chaining 96 stitches. This is a pattern repeat of 24 stitches, and we'll be repeating it 4 times, so we'll need a total of 96 chains. Once you have 96 chains, being careful not to twist those chains, we are going to join and work in the round. We're not going to be doing any joining chains. We're simply just going to be working continuously in the round for this cowl. We're going to start by single crocheting our very first round, continuing in this color blue. So go ahead and single crochet in each stitch for 96 stitches around. Now that we've got round 1 completed, we're going to be switching colors and doing 1 round of solid in our color B or our color gray. I see that there is a little bit of a jog here. You can see from round 1 to round 2 working continuously, but don't worry, you can always use your tail end later to kind of stitch that together to prevent any jogging per the rounds. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to grab our color B and single crochet around for 1 round in our color B. Now let's talk about how we want to change colors here. For this pattern, when we change colors, I've almost completed the last single crochet stitch in this blue, but to change colors to our color B, I'm going to grab the color B and I'm going to yarn over and pull through the 2 loops on my hook of the last stitch, and that does a nice clean color change and we are ready for our next color. And now we can single crochet around with the gray. So this is how we're going to be changing our colors throughout this pattern. I also recommend keeping that stitch marker close, especially in the colorwork section, so we can keep track of our rounds. Now let's talk about the type of stitches we're going to be using coming up. This is a split single crochet. So it's worked slightly different than a regular single crochet where we work right in the center of the V on the front and we come out on the back underneath this upside down V. And then when we yarn over and we pull up, we want to make sure we pull up that loop high enough to give us space for the next round. So we pull up this loop. We're going to pull it up a little bit more than normal and then yarn over and complete that stitch. It almost looks knit. Now that I've completed round 2, it is time for us to work on round 3, which is where we are going to be doing some fun color changes. So before we get into round 3, I want to talk about the chart. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Now for this chart, you will notice that you have 24 stitches wide, and then it starts working from the bottom to the top. So we're working from round 1 and we work up this chart. So round 2 is right here, and now we are on round 3. This chart will always be worked from right to left for every single round. It will start on the right side and move to the left. Now each round will have a total of 4 repeats, which means we'll be doing these 24 stitches 4 times. So you work across this round starting with color B, then 3 in color A, 4 in color B, 3 in color A, and so forth until you get to this point. And then you start again back at the beginning, working right to left. You'll do that 4 times until you get back to your stitch marker and you're ready to move on to round 4. Now I love working from visual charts, but if you are not a visual person, there is also a written pattern available for this design. Let's go back and talk about color changes. Now when we're starting round 3, my very first stitch in the round is a color B. Now I'm going to insert my hook into the V. So when we're working our split single crochets, which are worked from round 2 all the way through the remaining color work, we insert our hook into the center of this V, and also on the back side it goes through the center of the upside down V. So we're kind of splitting that stitch. We're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. Now this loop that we pull up, we really want to pull it up. That makes it easier for us to get into for the next round. Now I'm going to be switching to the color A for my next stitch in this round. So I will go ahead and yarn over and pull through with my color A to complete that first stitch. This is absolutely where you want to take your stitch marker and mark that first stitch in the round. Very important to do that. Now we will be working the next 3 stitches in our color A. My yarn, my color B yarn is just sitting on the back. It's not doing anything right now until I'm ready for it again. And now that I've done 3 in color A, before I complete that third, I'm going to switch to color B. And now I'm going to be doing 4 stitches in color B. Now, when I am working with color work, I do not like to do too many stitches in a row without catching my yarn on the back. And let me show you what I mean. I don't like to do more than 3 stitches, and I'll be doing 4 stitches in a row here. So I want to take my color A and just lay it across my hook. Then I'm going to take my color B and I'm going to complete this stitch, but I'll be working over and around this color. It's just going to be sitting on the back. So as I pull my working color through and make sure that's nice and loose, then I complete that stitch. If you look on the back, it caught my yarn. It catches the float. So the strand that just sits along the back, if it gets to be too long, it can mess with your gauge and your fingers can get stuck in it as you're taking it on and off, or maybe an earring is more likely to get caught in it. So we really want to make sure our floats don't go too far before we catch them. I try to just do them no more than 3 stitches in a row before I just need to catch it. And it's really simple to do. So now I'll go back to my color B for 3 and I'll let this is color A, and I'll let my color B just sit on the back. And then I'll switch back to my color A. And where this is for 4 again, on one of these stitches kind of towards the middle before I get to the end, no more than 3, I want to just take that color B over my hook and catch it on the back. If any of this color work hurts your hands, you find it difficult, you're frustrated, it's most likely your tension. You're going to want to make sure to continue to pull up this loop, and then you'll find that it gets much easier. These stitches for me are as easy to work into as any regular single crochet. The best thing you can do is just to keep your tension when you pull up this loop a lot more loose than you're used to. It works out since we're working through the center of that V. It needs some space for our hook to be able to go into. Now, as far as the techniques used in this pattern, you have learned them all. You are ready to keep going with that color work through all of these rounds. As I get back to the end of the round, I simply start round 4 and move my stitch marker up to the first stitch in the round. And the stitch marker is really helpful so that you don't get stuck or lost on where you are. As you get going, you can see the pattern and read your rounds a little bit better, but I still use a stitch marker on every round when doing this type of color work where it's continuous and not joining. So I'm going to let you go work on that color work, and I'll show you what mine looks like when we come back. And after the color work, we will just be working on ribbing. To do the ribbed edging along each side of this cowl, we are going to be doing a single crochet in the back loop only for lots and lots of rows until we get all the way around. So I'm going to show you how to do this. For our very first row, we are going to chain 5. And in the second stitch from the chain, we are going to do a single crochet. And then we're going to single crochet in each remaining stitch. Our stitch count from here on out is 4 stitches for every single row, but we will be working 2 slip stitches along the edges, and I'm going to show you how to do that now. So now that I've got my 4 single crochets, I'm going to pull in my tail end here. I am going to be working into the back loops only of the edge stitches. So I'm going to slip stitch 2 stitches, and I kind of keep them a little bit tighter along the edge of the body. And then I'm going to turn my work. And now I'm going to skip those 2 slip stitches from the body, and working in the back loops only, we are going to single crochet 4. And now we're going to turn our work. And I will tell you, that from here on out, I do not do the chain 1 as the edge stitch because it's not needed. It just adds extra bulk. You can work without it. So starting in the back loop only, I'm going to single crochet 4. And then once again, we will be slip stitching 2 stitches from the body edge, working in the back loop only of that body edge. And then turning and skipping those 2 slip stitches from the body edge and single crocheting 4. So we're going to keep repeating those steps all the way around until we get back to the beginning, and then come on back and I will show you how to join your starting edge with your finishing edge. Once you've worked all the way back around to your starting edge, it's time to join these 2 edges together. To do so, we're going to insert our hook into the back loop only of this current side we're working on, and then we're going to insert it into the loop on the first row we did. Then we will yarn over and slip stitch. We will repeat that all the way down each stitch, so working in the back loop only of the current row, grabbing that loop from the first row, and then simply slip stitching. It kind of hides our seam here, and it's an easy way to do it. If you prefer, you can always fasten off and hand sew these seams together. I am always about the path of least resistance and the fastest path. So once I slip stitch down these 4 stitches, then I can go ahead, and it hides quite nicely. I can fasten off and weave in this end, and then it's simply time to block, because you might see a shift in this. We see that there is a slant in some of these stitches. You can simply do a wet block to kind of take some of that out, but otherwise it looks really nicely, and it's a great cowl to wear all season long. Be sure to hit that subscribe button to follow for more future fun projects, and tag me on social media. I love seeing what you do. Until next time, happy crocheting.